I'm shitting myself. Why?
I'm shitting myself.
Shall we?
Let's dig it up.
Kev, one of my favourite buildings in Australia. So this is the High Court of Australia. This is off axes from the main axes of power, as it were, from the Parliament House to the old Parliament House through across the lake to the War Memorial. This sits off to the side, adjacent, separate to that powerful institution. And the High Court of Australia is here to defend the Constitution, or to its constitutional law. We're walking across red soil, sort of the vernacular of the Australian sort of desert soil.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting because you didn't need to have it being gravel, right? Because it's paved all the way. It paved everywhere except here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've got these dumb bollards because we're in an age now where a couple of dickheads have driven in public spaces where they shouldn't. But this is meant to be, what's great about the High Court is it's about transparency. It's about saying this is your constitution that together we are defending. So this grand avenue leads up to the High Court, which is transparent, straight through the High Court. They've deliberately designed it so it's almost like an arch, and you can, and you get there and the security basically just welcome you in. Please come in and learn about your constitution and the court that protects it. And so there's been such massive landmark cases measured here. So I'm not really big on symbolism in architecture, but I feel like this one gets it right. Kev, who are the architects?
EMTB, not to be confused with EMBT.
And
much
so
older.
This is flanked. So this is a court, the Constitutional Court, but it's flanked by the Portrait Gallery on one side and the National Gallery on the other side. National Gallery was also done by EMTB, and it's the same brutalist concrete architecture, but still very humanist, with this beautifully detailed lightweight steel structure and glass in between these almost ancient ruinous concrete structures. Basically, this is a building that's designed in section, not in plan. So it's quite odd in plan, really.
What section?
What section? You know, it's like the section, it's like the vibe of the thing. You know, the Constitution, it's the vibe.
Mabo.
Mabo, yeah.
What section of the Constitution has been breached?
Section? What section? There is no one section. It's just the vibe of the thing.
Not that kind of section. Isn't that north? I keep getting north wrong.
That's north.
That's north.
Right there, it's sun.
Is that what that is?
Yeah. Try again.
Oh. So the approach is from the south. So the biggest extent of glazing is from the south. And then flanked on each side, on the east and the west, you've got courtroom, hanging, big solid concrete internalised courtroom, courtroom 2, and then all the administrative offices.
On the eastern side.
On the eastern side. And then above, all the offices of the 7 High Court judges. There's only 3 courts in here. Before the age of terrorism, you used to just go straight through those doors and go straight up the ramp and wherever you wanted. And usually a security guard grabbed you and said, hey, do you want to come and look in the courtrooms? And they would the security guards acted as tour guides. It's probably the same way, but I think you're actually now chauffeured around to a side door where they now have metal detectors.
Oh, there you go. Here's a guard.
You reckon he's going to come and get us?
That's an exit.
Entrance closed. So we have to go over to...
Oh, there you go. There's the security stuff there.
Before we go
This is no
anywhere,
exit. There's no gift shop.
No exit through the gift shop. So you can see this huge concrete brutalist structure going around. And then, so this is 72-ish?
Yeah.
So glazing technology was very different then. But you can see their commitment to really lightweight steel structure and then getting this as glazed and as transparent as possible, getting lots of natural light in.
So it's like a hanging curtain of glass, literally, just vertical lines.
Yep. And you will see the same details in the art gallery. But there's something very different about this. That's a very horizontal building, and this is very vertical. And I think it's because they're trying to get that openness, that sense of the public own this. This is transparent and porous. I love how the steelwork's so subservient to the concrete. It's like they just set up this gridded structure of concrete, and then it's like they came along almost as an afterthought, which is typically a bad thing, but an afterthought, and then just bolted on the steel to the concrete. And so they were built at two completely different times. And then all the sun protection, like look at that for sun protection. They spent a bit of money on that stainless steel.
It's a bit like John Andrews.
Yeah, yeah. There's something really beautiful about the, oh, they're coming out to us, we're about to get in trouble, about the contrast between the concrete and the fine steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then down this side, so separate to the court, is actually this little, what do you call it, a little amphitheatre.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most beautiful parts of it, but I've never seen it in use. I love the angled glass too. I wonder if well, that's meant to be a courtroom there, isn't it? So I wonder if they've then, how that works, whether they've got, it's just for
It's
light.
got light below as well,
Well,
up
you
the
get to
top as
see-
well.
And that's a beautiful
That's a beautiful, wow, okay.
detail, isn't it?
Slots going through.
Yeah, and they've actually, so when with this, you actually go and chip this off by hand. So this is the kind of craftsmanship that's dead now because labour costs are so high, but they chip it to a certain point and then they leave it smooth. So that's the original board work, and then this is actually being hammered off. You can see the same there as well, where it's just where people touch, they've hammered off that
Just
point.
a bit of texture.
Bit of texture.
Bit of roughage for you.
Hi, we're inside the High Court. So things have changed a fair bit since I was a kid. So you used to just come straight in off the forecourt and just wander in. It was, as I mentioned before, this idea of transparency about the place that was enshrined, that protected the Constitution. Now, it's a very different scenario trying to get into the building. But as I mentioned before, 24 metre high ceilings. You can see the waffle slab up there. And there's two primary posts here holding that entire structure up.
So this is the Great Hall,
This is the Great Hall.
which
Yeah.
is the circulation space and its main atrium.
Yeah, and the public hall. And the great thing about it is that the courtroom's all open straight off this hall. So it is all about transparency and openness. The other thing that shows that commitment from the original architects and the intent was that even the flooring itself is exactly the same flooring as is outside. So the idea was that this glazed wall was simply a weather screen and that you didn't have all of this security and you could just walk straight in and get straight to the main court.
And all the circulation's expressed.
Yeah.
There's this big ramp.
Isn't this fun though? They've used like Pirelli rubber or something similar, bright orange.
But those stairs behind you over there as well.
Yeah, and there's stairs on that side as well. And there's a really lovely interplay between the solidity and the permanence of the concrete and then the lightness of the steel. Even the grills, the way that they've formed in to allow the grills, the return air through there. Look at that fine, fine detailing, that ladder up on there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's where we were before with the stainless steel sun shading on the outside. So Parliament's that way. You come through the forecourt, completely open. You can come up this ramp and then you look back over Lake Burley Griffin. Check this out. Like, look at the structure here. This huge amount of concrete coming through. That's all holding up all the offices above. That's a clear span. What's that got to be, like 30 metres? And then beneath that is just the steel frame and the glazing, all coming down, these white trusses, just down to one little pin joint that holds the trusses below.
Oh, this is timber. Look at this handrail.
It's for very short people. It's nice though. I don't understand it. Like, why is it angled? But I like it.
Do you think the glass is added later?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that's compliance added later. Could be wrong though.
So that's north facing, and that's the big shading.
Yeah, so you've got all of the stainless steel louvers tacked on the outside, and look at the way that it's really tacked. It's similar to the structure downstairs, where it's just pin joints pinning it into the walls. And then you look straight across to Civic, and that's Mount Ainslie there, is it?
Yes.
And then look at this. So these have been here since the court opened. So you can just rock in from a public outdoor space and just come up here and sit down. And before they introduced a lot more security, nobody would ask you a question. You just be able to chill out and enjoy this incredible public space. Look at the way the trusses come down, and then they've actually stopped that one short because they've had to deal with the stairs, and so they've just pinned it straight across into the concrete.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, you've got these amazing pin joints that come down onto the concrete. So very similar to our, what was it, Spencer Street? No, Southern Cross Station episode. And all of that steel doing all that work and then coming down to one little pin joint. Now, that's only a 20 mil rod through there, taking all of that load.
That ramp the ramp is pretty epic.
Yeah.
That
Do you
space.
Do you know they got a model of the building?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Oh, there's courtroom 3.
So, how do we answer? Oh, look at that.
That's where we're standing right there.
Yeah, that peeled off.
Yeah. But you were saying before, Kev, you were trying to work out why it's doing what it's doing externally.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out why does it look like what it is.
And then you've got all the offices on this side, all stacked up, looking back towards the National Gallery.
And is that a column? That big round thing?
Yeah. So you've got one column there, one column there, and so they're just huge concrete clear spans across. So brutalism, this idea of just show what's really happening. So the structure is the structure, you don't decorate it. The services are all on show. But there's also this really nice twist of high tech in this building, don't you reckon, Kev?
Well, the screen definitely is.
Yeah.
I guess around that time it's also probably one of the lightest structure available.
Yeah, early 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was about as transparent as you could get through a building. Like glass technology has changed so much.
But look at the way that the columns end and how they support.
And it just spreads out, so you don't get a really high point load, I'm assuming. And a good old-fashioned waffle slab, you've got to love it.
But also, I think there's a general language in this building where there are solid walls and there's a cutout and there's something that's inserted through it.
Yeah.
Like even just that entry there.
It's courtroom 2.
Courtroom 2, but you look at it, the entry. It's just a cutout, recessed in, it's got a metal around it, and then this thing just comes out obliquely.
Yeah. But when you're in Canberra and you need somewhere to chill out, like, look, you can just come in and you can just sit here and then look across towards Parliament. This is a public building, so therefore they treat the interior spaces as though they're public spaces, which is the way it should be. These buildings shouldn't be fenced off and detached from the community, because they are community buildings. Look at these details, like all of this custom-made stuff. All that. Isn't that beautiful? I love how clear it is. Courtroom 2, courtroom 3, courtroom 1. It's just so clear. Isn't that gorgeous? And then they've just built that around it. And where they've needed compliance, they've just infilled it with a little bit of glass. Stop kids from sneaking through.
That's a big column.
It's a big, big column. And you can see Parliament from here. The big flag of New Parliament. And then back towards Civic in the city. And then if you follow it, and it comes down and becomes this little clamp here for that, down to a little brace plate. And then look, they haven't actually chipped away the concrete there.
Oh, yeah.
So the concrete actually then comes through on that. So cute. See all the brass around the columns, so exactly the height that you would lean against it on all of the columns.
You can see the acoustic panelling between the ceiling in timber.
Yeah. And then the air intakes, no, they're outtake. The air is actually clamped onto those concrete beams.
Oh yeah.
So this is the board finish. So when they poured all of this concrete, that was the finish on it. So they have to actually come across and apply this finish. They basically chip away at it. But they leave, if you look all around the building, they leave the edges expressed in the original boardwork, and then when it comes and attaches somewhere else, it's almost as though they're trying to separate these bits of structure, even though it's one homogeneous piece of concrete. Yeah, even there where the timber is
Where
almost
timber stops, yeah.
following the same line. So we're chiselling, 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 and then we're leaving that alone. And then just a view out over Lake Burley Griffin.
When you're waiting for the lift.
Yeah. So the design sections showed that they wanted a big clear space with these boxes floating in it. And so you can see with Courtroom 3 what they've done here. They've expressed this as a box, but they've separated, they've deliberately left it separate from this column, but it needs its load to be picked up. So it's just touching on the very edge where they've thickened out the columns slightly. So it still reads as this big box hanging in space, but it's doing a lot of structural load on one little point.
I think there's a lot of effort in this building where they separate identities of elements, like the ramp. You know,
Yeah.
the ramps don't touch.
Yeah,
And
well,
over
this
here,
one doesn't touch at all, and then that one's just got enough concrete coming across.
so it hangs out of it.
Because they want to create like a beam structure there for all the offices inside. It would have been easier just to smash that into it, but then you wouldn't understand that 3 or 4 story tall concrete wall that has all their offices facing out towards the gallery.
Because it's the big volume for which things exist within.
Yeah, and that ramp is one of those things that exists within it in the form. So you want to detach it as much as you can. You know, you were pointing this out, so these concrete beams, and then they've got these sound buffer
That's
elements.
on an angle.
And yeah, on an angle, so it breaks down the acoustics. There's a really nice flat sort of acoustic here, but then they've also hidden all of the lighting and the services, but still stuck with that brutalist concrete structure. You know how we talk a lot about rules, following the rules? There's kind of a bit of making it up as you go along in this building though, which I quite like actually. And I think it comes with experience. Like, this is the underside of the ramp, and then this is where the ramp turns on itself, and they've just kind of gone with it and made these really sculptural elements out of it. So in some ways they're kind of playing catch up. You mentioned before, Kev, about how everything within this volume needs to be separated. Here you can actually really see this other ramp and how that sits as a separate element, and they've put these little bits of, well, these huge bits of structure off instead of connecting it through to that wall. You can see the level of porosity that this building was meant to have, the openness was meant to have. You know, you've got more openings down there, on axes, that doorway there. This was meant to be a building that just let people through it. You know, it was about public access to the Constitution and the highest court of the land.
It's all part of it. This is what I'm getting at. That's my point. It's the vibe of it.
One of the cool things is this weird little space next to them, which I have not known what it has been for years. Like, I love it, and I always am here scratching my head like, what the hell is it? And so what happened was, when they started building the National Gallery, this is where they would template things. So the builders would get the architect's sketches and say, is this how you want it? And so they'd prototype everything here, and then they'd get approved and they'd build it at the gallery, and then the same thing happened for the High Court. And so you end up with this amazing little jungle
Folly.
gym. Yeah, Folly, like a one-to-one, full-scale models.
Which
of
they
details.
which they do overseas.
Yeah.
But
Well, for-
this is, it just becomes a little architectural game, really,
Yeah.
the spaces.
And it all makes sense now. Like, you look here, and this is exactly the ribbed concrete structure that we saw inside when we were looking at the that were then infilled with plywood, with the lighting in it and the sound dampening.
And then there's louvers.
Yep, there's louvers on that side. There's different levels. If you have a look, there's actually different levels of sort of the tampering and the
Oh, yeah.
So that one's much more coarse than this one. So these look like they've been done at different times. And the architect's been able to come along and go, no, that one's too rough, I want that one.
And the junctions of things.
But it's great they kept it. Instead of going, nah, throw it out, knock it all down.
But it's also one of a nice way to arrive at this.
It is, because that's the main walkway down there next to Lake Burley Griffin, the cycle tracks and the footpaths, and you can just come through here. They've got lots of seating, and then you can arrive up at the main landing in front of the High Court, which then connects straight across a footbridge to the art gallery. Or you can turn right and go to the National Portrait Gallery. Oh, that's interesting. This datum, and then you just get the National Portrait Gallery off in the distance. It's kind of similar to what you were talking about at the Melbourne, the Victorian Shrine of Remembrance, rising up the stairs and having it at eye height. Because see where the blade at the back actually completely blocks out the view.
Yeah. Oh, wait, the level of that blade
Yeah,
is the datum here, almost.
isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Accidental?
Don't know.
Or are we just seeing what we want to see? I like it.
In summing up, it's the Constitution, it's Mabo, it's justice, it's law, it's the vibe, and no, that's it, it's the vibe. I rest my case.
That was sensational.